Now the story that might never have surfaced if someone hadn't picked up his home video camera. We've all seen the pictures of Los Angeles police officers beating a man they had just pulled over. The city's police chief said today he will support criminal charges against some of the men. Here's ABC's Gary Shepard.
The 3 police officers facing felony criminal charges were among a group of 15 who stopped a 25-year-old black man last Saturday night, then beat him, kicked him, and clubbed him, unaware that an amateur photographer was recording the incident on videotape.
That man was Rodney King, an African-American construction worker who was driving on the freeway when officers caught him speeding and began to pursue. King refused to pull over. He feared of being found for driving under the influence because he was still on parole for recently being charged with robbery.
As you saw in the video, the police tasered him to the ground, beating him and kicking him multiple times until he was brought to emergency rescue. While at the hospital, King was treated for lacerations, bruises, broken bones, as well as brain and kidney damage.
I just want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along? Can we stop making it horrible for the older people and the kids?
George Holliday, a nearby witness, was the man who videotaped the scene. When he later reported the scene to the police, it was ignored. He then sent it to news stations who publicly broadcasted it shortly after. The exposure of this beating led to the arrest of all the officers involved. However, during their trial, the majority of the jury was white, and they acquitted all those being tried. The officers not being acquitted led to a large string of events that were labeled the 1992 LA riots. During these rebellions, 50 people died, over 2,000 were injured, while 9,500 people were arrested for rioting, looting, and arson. This all resulted in $1 billion of property damage from the over 4,000 buildings that were burned.
Traffic was blocked, rioters beat motorists, and Korean shop owners protected their businesses with rifles in African-American neighborhoods. Cars skidded around downtown LA, shops along the boulevard were looted, and there was no police activity whatsoever. One significant moment was when Reginald Denny, a white trucker, was dragged out of his vehicle and nearly beaten to death by 3 African-American men.
By 6:30, we were on the air live, and the rest was history.
Oh, look at that. Terrible. And there's no police presence down here. They will.
Football Monroe Williams took this brick and literally pitched it into the side of Mr. Denny's skull, causing 97 fractures. Mr. Denny nearly died. His brain started swelling. He had a subdural bleed. He had minutes to live.
Finally, the riots had gone too far, and on May 1st, 1992, George Bush ordered troops and trained officials into the city of Los Angeles to control the situation. By the next day, the riots ceased, and the effects of these riots were left to be dealt with.
The Fordham Law Journal claims Rodney was a victim of the big black man syndrome, calling out the defense team for manipulating racial fears. The idea of this stereotype was that bias had been built up over centuries of oppression. One 1929 Illinois crime survey that lists black as 30% of casualties in recorded police killings, while they only make up 5% of the population.
Officer Stacy Kuhn testified about being scared for his life and chalked up King's erratic behavior and resistance to usage of the drug PCP, though King later tested negative for it. It is also suggested that the big black man stereotype hurt the prosecution because they didn't consider it well enough to have King himself testify. King's later testimony during the federal trial proved to be helpful because he came across as gentle and well-spoken, something even the defense team admitted.
The raw violence of the beating did not match 3 decades of post-racial belief where the only racism supposedly left in America was affirmative action. King's tape compelled criminal justice officials and politicians to re-engineer or re-rig the system into a web of seemingly non-racial policies, such as stop, question, and frisk or stand your ground laws. It is now this system that condones the routine targeting of young black men for harassment or violence.
After the Rodney King trial, it became apparent that modern racism was the discrete, yet oppressive rules and actions put in place to maintain a socio-economic separation in both race and class.
One possible solution would be to do what Jonathan Kold does in Savage Inequalities, which is inform the public. Teaching about the horrible conditions in the different school districts can be applied to this situation as the first step in preventing modern racism. This would expose the subtle racism to the public.
Drawing a connection to Dropout Nation, one solution is to try to fix the gaps in socioeconomic status, and that can be done at the student level. The opportunity flowchart shows that student background, circumstance, and interest is the foundation to a good life in the future. The anger between races is not inspired by nothing, and if minorities are worse off than whites, it becomes easier to lose progress, even to the point of racism.
As mentioned before, Rodney King was not really angry about the incident. He only sought justice and got more than he hoped when 2 of the police officers were later found guilty. This is key for any solution to modern racial issues. Hate typically only breeds more hate, and King knew this when he asked rioters to calm down and just get along. Riots and angry mobs have never been appreciated by society, and justice has always prevailed.
That song right there, it's called Amazing. It's about me, things I've been through. And I'm telling people, I don't need y'all to tell me that I'm amazing. Just look at me.